did the others in the group. But then at that point, we don't remember much at all. We blacked out. Let's just say these girls were extremely handsy and doing stuff to us without any consent. In total, between the two of us, we had just over $6,000 gone from our accounts.
That's insane.
$6,000 for the worst night out ever.
A lot of people, especially black people, complain about Japan being racist or being scared of black people, but yet, so whenever I hear black people complaining about racism in Japan, it's like, look at some of the people who are black. Konnichiwa minasan, hyo desu. So we're gonna be looking at Japan's worst tourism scam that got someone to lose a significant amount of money. Looking forward to reacting to this video, but before that, guys, we are close to 200,000 subscribers, so if you haven't already, like the video and subscribe to the channel.
The scam you need to worry about the most is in Tokyo, and to be more specific, in the districts of Shinjuku, Roppongi, and to a lesser extent Ueno and Shibuya as well. And the one thing all these areas have in common is historically they're very touristy places.
Yep.
The story we're going to read out today is actually in Kabukicho. I don't want to put people off Kabukicho though. It is a very cool place. The food's amazing, the nightlife's awesome, the atmosphere is incredible. And in fact, this set is kind of modelled on Kabukicho. I love it. I should have just filmed all my videos there instead of building this ridiculously elaborate set. But I was there only a week ago. It's not an inherently dangerous place, and it's changed a heck of a lot in the last decade. It's far more gentrified now, and there's a lot more hotels, and so there's a good chance you'll stay there if you do come to Tokyo. But there's one rule you need to follow if you do go there, and that is never ever ever follow one of the touts into a bar. And if you follow that rule, you can basically switch the video off now and have a nice day. Unfortunately, a lot of people do follow the street touts. They're pretty nice people, they're very engaging and good at what they do, and they're there to get you off the street and into a bar. And you might be thinking, well, oh yeah, it's obvious, don't follow them. That's a golden rule for not just Japan, but many countries. But I think a lot of people get lulled into that false sense of security, given that it is Japan, given that it is an inherently safe country. Now, the touts that target foreigners specifically are actually foreigners themselves. They're not Japanese, they're Nigerian guys that have been given visas to come over and basically kind of do this and work
Nigerians,
with
man.
organisations in the area. They have two very good skills. Number one, they're very friendly and engaging. And number two, they're very persistent. Once you start speaking to someone, you can't get rid of them. And it gets very difficult. And if you're none the wiser to the scam, either you or your group of friends might say, yeah, who doesn't want free drinks? I'd love a free drink. Let's go. And away you go to a bar that's typically hidden several stories up in one of the buildings down that very neon-lit district. Now, once you get inside one of these bars, you are, for lack of a better phrase, pretty screwed. You are going to get charged extortionate prices for drinks. 3, 4, 5 times what you're expected to pay. When the bill comes, the odds are you're going to query it. You're going to be like, no, I'm not paying $200 for what was $20, $30 of drinks. And it's at this point you won't be allowed to leave the bar. There'll be a group of people blocking the door, basically preventing you from leaving until you either pull out the cash or a credit card. In some cases, if you don't have cash, they might take you to an ATM. They'll like frog march you to a fucking ATM and watch you get the money out. It's pretty insane. Don't think just because you've got no cash on you, you've got a magical get out of jail free card. They'll still get the money out of you somehow. And those free drinks and reasonable prices you were promised at the start of the night have gone on to become the most expensive drinks you've probably ever had. But the worrying thing is that's actually a pretty good variation of the scam. That's a less severe one than the one we're going to read out now, because it can go much worse than that, as Laura found out with her husband when she came to Japan 2 or 3 years ago for her honeymoon. She begins. So my husband and I were in Japan and started our trip in Tokyo. We were staying in Shinjuku and pre-booked the robot restaurant for the evening on Sunday. And we decided we should find a karaoke bar. We wandered the streets in Kabukicho for just a couple of minutes before one of our group, neither me nor my husband, got chatting to a tout on the street. I didn't hear the conversation, so I don't know what was offered, but in any event, we found ourselves in a bar and were taken to a karaoke room and were brought several trays of drinks for the group. My husband sang a bit of karaoke, as did the others in the group, but then at that point, we don't remember much at all. We blacked out. Next thing I knew, it was several hours later and we were in the same bar but in a different room. And a hostess girl was basically sat on top of me, and I looked over and my husband was in exactly the same situation. Let's just say these girls were extremely handsy and doing stuff to us without any consent. I also recall the street tout coming over several times with trays of drinks. I remember being in a totally zombie-like state as I saw my husband kissing a hostess girl, and I had pretty much zero reaction, so definitely confident we were drugged for that reason. If I was just drunk, I'd have been angry or upset to see something like this, but instead I was weirdly emotionless. Right, pause for a minute. This is insane. Imagine watching your husband, your new husband, kissing some hostess girl right next to you and feeling nothing. They've clearly been drugged, and this is something that some of the bars do. They put like sleeping tablets and other things in the drink to basically knock you out and make you in a sort of vulnerable state. And once the people in the bar do this, they've basically got, free reign with your credit card, with your wallet. Laura continues, after that, all I recall is being in a taxi, trying to get back to our hotel. I had no cash in my purse and had to pay for the taxi on my credit card. Miraculously, we made it back to the hotel. Next morning, we woke up and I looked in my purse to find my debit card was gone, which prompted me to check my online banking. A transaction appeared for around $2,500. My husband checked his account and he had lost the same amount of money, roughly the exact same amount. Then I checked my credit card and there was another transaction for around $1,000. In total, between the two of us, we had just over $6,000 gone from our accounts.
That's insane.
$6,000 for the worst night out ever. After a bit more searching, and as the most horrendous hangover in my life wore off, we realised my bank card was in fact in my husband's wallet. One of his cards was in my purse, which makes me think the staff had probably just helped themselves, swiped them, and then put them in the wrong wallets. Next day, we reported to the police, who weren't particularly interested and told us to take it up with our banks. The banks weren't interested, as they said it was an authorised transaction and would have to take it up with the bar, which we obviously had no intention of doing, since at this point we knew it was probably run by a criminal organisation. I don't even know the name of the bar. It comes up on our bank statements as Primetime Bar, but Google just brings up nothing from that name in Shinjuku. So yeah, that's it basically. We couldn't wait to leave Tokyo, and now we're in debt, unfortunately. Never ever follow a street town, she ends the message with. This is without a doubt one of the worst real-life horror stories I've heard of anyone who's ever travelled to Japan. You might be sceptical and think, well, they're clearly exaggerating. It can't be that amount of money. But I've heard this story dozens of times from viewers, from listeners of the podcast. This is probably the highest amount of money I've heard, but everything in this story, there's nothing new there. This is something that happens in Tokyo. You need to be careful of it. Never follow a street tout. Always be careful. And hopefully you won't ever have to endure what Laura and her husband went through on this occasion.
Yeah, that is absolutely terrible. You know what's really disappointing to me is that a lot of people, especially black people, complain about Japan being racist or being scared of black people, but yet I always hear, since I was in high school, I've always heard that Nigerians have such a bad reputation in Japan for being overly aggressive and being scam artists. And the fact that most of these guys that do this are Nigerian, they're black, they're gonna get a reputation for being very sketchy. And the fact, these stories are horrible. They're scamming people out of a whole bunch of money. It seems like the police may be tied to them in some way, so they're not gonna do anything about it. Obviously, they've been doing it for a while because they've clearly put tactics in place so they can't be found. So whenever I hear black people complaining about racism in Japan, it's like, look at some of the people who are black who are doing this. And I know they usually target foreigners because, they're more naive to these kind of things. But it's really disappointing to me to hear how much Nigerians are caught up in criminal activity. So I don't blame sometimes when Japanese people said they don't want foreigners in their country, because if people are going to come here and do stupid things like this and give foreigners a bad reputation, and it makes sense why a lot of Japanese people may be wary of foreigners or may stay away from certain kinds of foreigners, but especially these Nigerians, man. Again, you don't stereotype everybody into one category, but at the same time, it's like, why do I always find it's Nigerians that tend to be caught up in criminal activity? It just makes me upset. Horrible thing. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. So if you guys found this video interesting, please smash the like button, smash the subscribe button, also hit that bell as well to get notified whenever we post a video. Hontou, arigatou gozaimasu. Minna, 気をつけて。じゃあね。